Alright, so welcome back to Driveway. Today we're going to talk about that fuel box that I created, I don't know, what was that, 6, 7, 8 months ago? And kind of what I'm planning on doing to make it a lot more better. Essentially to make it better, since that was kind of a proof of concept and it worked really well, except for a couple little flaws that I kind of made in the process. So let's go take a look at that and how we can fix it. Alright, so don't mind my empire of junk here. We got so much stuff still left over from the heavy push to try to get to Rocky Mountain Race Week that I've had troubles trying to keep up with cleaning it after the fact. So I still have quite a ways to go on the cleaning side, but I should get there pretty quick. So right here is Fuel Box 1.0, and it worked really well. There's no leaks, any of the fittings, but the part I didn't like is up here on the top. It had a 1/4 inch piece of steel backing from the back with the bolt coming up. So that way I didn't have to seal the bolt holes. And then I had a plate that went over top. And then in between we had gaskets and gasket gunk stuff. Now where part of the problem came is the top plate that I had was not that thick of a piece of steel, so it actually bent some of the steel. So here's the top plate, and you can see if we can show you it. It started bending some of the metal when I was trying to get enough clamping force. So that created a possible leak spot where then it had to rely on this blue fuel gasket stuff, which they say was impervious to E85, but you see this white chalky stuff, that would be E85 eating the stuff impervious to E85. So that was a problem. Essentially what we ended up with was, I believe over here where that bend was, we were getting just a little trickle of a leak, but only when we had a full tank of gas, so that way there was enough column pressure to force it in between the seal. So everything else worked. Our wire pass-through worked perfectly fine. So the technique of dumping some of that epoxy resin in there, that actually proved to work. So when thinking about modifying this, I decided I need a thicker metal flange, and I also need to rely less on chemical gaskets. And I also realized there was no way to essentially remove these wires. So if something were to go wrong with one of the pigtails, I could not remove this and redo the pass-through. So that was a problem. I've also researched the pass-throughs that they sell, and I did not like any of the designs that they had. It solely relied on the contact between a rubber hole and the wire housing, and I did not think that was a wise concept, so we're going a different direction. Then the other thing that came to mind was, once this was up in the car where it actually fit and not where I thought it was going to go, the side of the tank is really close to the rear U-joint right at the differential. So that might be a possible hazard if you were to lose that U-joint and have the shaft smash into the side of the tank. So that is what brings me to Tank Box 2.0. And here is Tank Box 2.0. As you can tell, it's pretty much the same setup. We got the fuel outs, return, other fuel, and the main fill. But what we have different on this, for starters, is the majority of it is made out of 1/8" steel. It makes it relatively heavy, but I am not going to worry at all with a U-joint smashing into the side of that thing. It's not going to rip a hole in it and cause leaks all over the place. Then the other thing I did, instead of having a thin piece of sheet metal backed by a piece of 1/4 inch and then having a top plate, I just went and put holes in 1/4 inch plate and welded that as the top plate. So now we got an 1/8 inch top plate. And to top that off, I took another 1/4 inch section, made sure it was round, cut myself a groove for an O-ring, so that way we can flip this guy up on the O-ring and we are good. Let's see, this one probably, for some reason, try as I might to make everything perfectly symmetrical, the 2 bolt holes didn't actually end up being symmetrical. But either way, we end up with something like that. Let's grab another O-ring here. These are Viton O-rings, so they're pretty much good to go on chemical resistance. So there's that. Then we'll essentially just run bolts through here that I've tapped into this 1/4 inch piece of steel. Now all the fittings are the same on the front, except you might notice there's an extra hole here in the middle. And that is for our pass-through. Unfortunately, our wires got a little bit short when I cut it from the old panel, but since it'll be mounted right there next to the fuel pumps, they have a long enough pigtail that it won't matter. So we'll dump the epoxy stuff, sealant, in here to seal that, and then we'll actually screw this in from the inside, and it will pass the, come on. Well, you kind of get the point. It will pass the wires through for the connection, and it will seal everything up quite nicely. And then for extra security, for thread sealing, I found this stuff at the old Menards there. It's some PTFE pipe thread sealant, but what I was looking for was this guy over here, where it says that it's good for gasoline, gasohol, glycol, butane, castor oils, ammonia, cutting oil, jet fuel, kerosene, mineral spirits, naphtha, other petroleums, xylol. So that's some pretty hefty solvents that it's good up against. So we'll use this to seal all the threads here so the O-ring doesn't have to do all the work. And then we'll also use it on the bolts that go down so they're sealed in there. So hopefully that will give us a much better seal, and it will look slightly more intelligent as well. So that's essentially what I am doing here. My next step is actually going to be taking some more of this gas tank sealer that I ordered up. I got some black this time, so it's much easier to see where it goes in the tank. So I can make sure that I direct only enough in there and not have like half the container left over to dump back and waste. So I'm going to get started on that, and we'll probably come back when all this stuff is cured up and ready to fly. Alright, so it's all nicely coated in there. You can't really see it, but it is. I got a much smoother coat on it this time around than I did with the first box. Since with the first box I had no idea how that coating worked, and I also was using a clear, so it was hard to see what was going on. But now all that we really need to do here is we just need to wedge all of our fittings back in. Pretty much all just like that. Throw down our O-ring lid here. Alright, well anyways, everything's all cured up. I loaded up with the fuel pumps, attached them all in, got our pigtail sticking out here. That way we got a place to couple in all of our wires. And we can just hook our hoses back on. And I've already pressurized this to somewhere between 10 and 20 pounds. And sprayed a little soap on there, and we got a perfect seal. So this should not leak, and we should be good to go. So it's just a matter of probably sprucing it up a little bit so it doesn't turn into a rust bucket. Then we'll chuck it back into the car. So anyways, that's probably enough for today. It's kind of been a long couple days. Got this all bolted together. And now that we're done with this, we can get that in the car and move the car around so we can get to installing something more like this. So that's for next video. Anyways, thanks once again for stopping by, and we'll have to see you all later.